What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to our match reaction after Liverpool eventually beat Bournemouth by 4-2. A game that I guess if you were neutral had a little bit of everything, but as Liverpool fans, well, it should have been a lot easier than it was in the end. I'm going to take you through and give you my thoughts on the game, of course, asking you guys to let us know yours. Plenty to go through in that one. Obviously, we had an opening day goal from Hugo Ekitike, Cody Gakpo, Mohamed Salah late on, and Federico Chiesa, the hero of the day. We want to know your thoughts, so of course, let us know in the comment section. Do drop a like on this stream as well. And look, I think it's fair to say we have a lot to run through. Before I get stuck into the comments and the chat as well, just a quick reminder that today we are being brought to you with thanks to our friends at FotMob. They are giving away 10 copies of the new EAFC game and 5 Premier League shirts of your choice. Everybody who downloads the app and redeems the code PL25, that's PL25, can participate in the giveaway. It is that easy. FotMob is already used and trusted by over 20 million people around the world and is the best football app on the market, bar none. Improve your matchday experience with live scores, live stats, XG, momentum graphs, and much, much more during games. FotMob player ratings are universally used and recognised as the best stats-based rating model on the market. I will give you a little bit more information now on the actual giveaway itself. This season, though, our friends at FotMob have added a couple of new things to the metrics, such as top speed and total distance for all players in every single match. This data will be live just like any other stat in the FotMob app. For the giveaway, to participate, it's really simple. You can follow the steps on the screen. Download the FotMob app for your chance to win 10 copies of EAFC or 5 Premier League shirts they're giving away. Download the FotMob app, open it up, click on More, then on Settings, and redeem the code PL25, that's PL25, as shown on the screen. This will bring you to a Google form that lets you participate in, well, everything, and get yourself in with a chance to win one of those 2 prizes. And again, 10 copies of EAFC and 5 Premier League shirts available to everybody that downloads the app and redeems the code PL25, right? Thank you to our sponsors, and let's get stuck into your comments, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a few to go through, and already I see there's about, oh God, there's a load of super chats I need to catch up on as well. So let's start off with this one from Tom. We were never great on the first day, to be fair. Bournemouth gave us a fair game, but if we can score 4 goals in every game, we'll be okay. We've had enough chances to kill the game off in the first half. Look, for me, Tom, this game gave us a little bit of everything, right? Yes, we created a lot going forward, and yes, it is the opening day, and as always, you take the performance with a pinch of salt. But what this told me is that we have problems defensively, and I don't think I'm alone in saying that. I'm concerned. Let's talk about the manager, right? And let's talk about the substitutions. Again, there are substitutions that didn't add to the game. Let's remember the timing of these substitutions as well. To bring on players to look to see out the game, and for that to have caused us to capitulate, it's worrying. Bringing on Endo at right back absolutely baffles me. Frimpong had bags of energy to get up and down that right side and the pace to live with Bournemouth on the counter-attack. Let's have a look at their first goal. What happens? Well, Liverpool give the ball away in their half from Mohamed Salah pass. Then we're countered quickly. Endo is too far upfield, and Kanade is left with a difficult task to cover for him and keep an eye on what's going on. It's just silly. Why take Frimpong off and replace him with a 31, 32-year-old Endo who doesn't have the pace at right back? It's baffling. The substitutions, he needs to get a grip with them, because if it's, let's say, looking to see out the game, well, it did anything but. We looked far more comfortable when we were 2-0 up in possession than we did when Arna made the changes to try to control and see out the game. It absolutely caused us problems. But the real anger for me in that game is towards Kanade and Virgil for the second goal. He picks up the ball, Semenyo, in his own half, and they back off and back off and back off, and at some point, as a centre-back, you have to step up and commit the player. Yes, you drop as long as you can, and maybe the occasional time you go, all right, then score. But you do it outside the penalty area, and they didn't. They backed off and off and off, and Semenyo probably couldn't believe his luck. He was surrounded with Liverpool players, not one challenge, not one. That's not good enough, and I don't want to hear any crap from Virgil or any excuses. That is centre-back 101. And they know they need to... It's just so stupid. I can't fathom it. Why drop off and not commit your man? Make him do something instead of dropping off and giving him a shot. A free shot, an unchallenged shot from 10, 12 yards out. It's absolute stupidity and it's not good enough. Let's look at some of the numbers from the game as well, folks. 61% possession to Liverpool, 39 to Bournemouth. 19 shots from Liverpool, 10 on target. 10 from Bournemouth, 3 on target. Total dangerous attacks, 57 for Liverpool, 38 for Bournemouth. Corners, 6 for the Reds, 7 for Bournemouth. Total passes, Liverpool 463 with an 83% passing accuracy. Bournemouth 289% with 71% passing accuracy. But ultimately, we got lucky. Because, yes, we won the game. But we won the game when it got to desperation stakes and we were just pouring forward. It could have been, should have been, and has to be managed more easily going forward. Want to say a huge shout out to Federico Chiesa as well. That was a moment that every Liverpool fan wanted to see. Fede scoring in front of the Kop, wheeling away, and getting a moment that he deserves. He very, very much deserves. Lovely to see Mo get a goal at the end as well. You could see his celebration in respect to Diogo. But there are things we need to work on. Yes, there's some good things in there, but there's an awful lot that needs to be figured out as well. And it needs to be figured out soon. Because this game at home, with respect to Bournemouth, was a comfortable enough one to start the season. Away against Newcastle, if we put in a performance like that, we're not leaving with any points. Right, anyway, let's get into some of the comments. The real Johnny Sins said, bring back the no-nonsense centre-back era of John Terry. Oh, mate, honestly, I know I keep banging on about it, but if I'm a goalkeeper and I'm looking at my two centre-backs, we call it jockeying here in Ireland. I don't know if it's a similar phrase. Just jockeying and jockeying. At some point, you have to commit and step forward and make the player do something. Either square it or take you on. But we didn't. And I honestly couldn't believe what I was looking at. Two experienced centre-backs just dropping off for nothing. It's inexplicable to me that happens in a professional game. Mental. Didinho said, and just like that, Chiesa saves his Liverpool career. Well, if anybody out there deserved to have that moment, it's him. He has been patience personified, professionalism personified, through what must be a very difficult part in his career. And when it dropped to him like that, boom, buried it. I'm delighted for him. Absolutely delighted for him. Delighted for Mo, he got his goal as well, because that goal doesn't come about without Mo's hard yards running as well. Worked the ball, brought it inside, scored. Great, happy days in that. But there were times today where he wasn't good enough either. Look, I know we've won. And it's easy to get carried away and go, woo, we won. But let's be honest. We said before the season started, this time we're holding these guys to high standards. We've spent a lot of money. We've brought in a lot of talent. We need to see better performances than this moving forward. Breathe. Right. Jason said, Mo Salah emotional, crying at the end, clapping the fans while singing the Ogo song. Yeah, that was when he scored the goal and he did this celebration as well. It was emotional to look at. It was. And it wouldn't have been an easy game for these guys tonight either. You know, with the public gaze there and Diogo's family there. It was an emotional occasion. But we got the job done. We got the win. On to next week, but we need to be better than this. And the one thing I did have a concern about in pre-season, and I spoke about it in the Community Shield, was I didn't think that we had put the strongest 11 out enough in pre-season. I don't think we played enough of these guys together. And look, I know in pre-season you're breaking up games and sometimes you're one team one half and one team in another. But it looks like they're still working through stuff out there and they haven't been drilled enough together, if that makes sense, in pre-season. It's one thing doing it on the training pitch, but you need minutes. You need minutes together out there in a competitive environment. Itachi said, this ending is so typical Liverpool. I'd like to see us dominate a game and go 3-4-0 up. Gay is needed badly. Isak and Hugo up front could be such an amazing thing, my friends. I thought that Hugo Ekitike was sublime. I thought he was incredible. Worked so hard, looked so up for it. And there's really, really a lot of promise in Hugo Ekitike moving on. Florian Wirtz, it was always going to be one of these, will he drop straight in and be brilliant, or will it take a little bit of time? And I felt like today, there were a couple of moments that maybe would have had that half second longer in the Bundesliga, but this is the Prem and you don't get time to dwell on the ball. So he needs to understand and get used to that as well. I thought Dom put in a good shift, covered a lot of ground. And just the real concerns for me is the defence. I can't get away from that. It looked like Milos Kerkez was almost too eager to please at times and was a little bit overly enthusiastic. Frimpong will get there. I actually liked a lot of what I seen from Frimpong today. But again, we can't but come back to the substitutions and ask, what was the manager thinking? Eddie said Ibu needs to go. So can I ask you guys a question in the chat? I obviously watch the game on mute, so I don't hear what's happening. Is Ibu getting booed, or are they saying Ibu, Ibu? Like I said, I can only read the chat and I don't know, but I'm confused by it. So can somebody clear that one up for me? We do have the man of the match poll up as well. We've already had 5,000 votes on it. The man of the match poll is Hugo Ekitike, Federico Chiesa, Dominic Soboslai, or Alexis McAllister. They were saying Ibu. Cool. Yeah, because it surprised me to see people in the chat thinking they were booing, because that's not the way Liverpool fans do these things. Yes, it happened with Trent, but yeah, I thought and assumed it was just a miscommunication of the Ibu chant. But again, thanks for clearing that up. Scratching Claimers said, offensive champions, let's skip the defending part. Maddie said, slot subs baffling, I've no idea what he was thinking. Shane said, that Salah moment after the game was sad, poignant and beautiful. R.I.P. Diogo and Andre. As I said, it always felt, Shane, and of course we don't know this, mate, because we're not inside the Liverpool camp, but it always did seem to me like Mo was carrying a particular emotional burden after the passing of Diogo. Everybody grieves and deals with things in different ways. Some people wear their heart on their sleeve. Some people can compartmentalize certain things. But it always felt to me like, it did hit Mo hard. And I think today, I expect Mo to perform better moving forward. I think today he got a lot out off his chest. And it was an emotional evening. It was. And thank you, Shane, by the way. Any updates on Stefan? Please, boss man. Back training, but don't know when maybe to be considered for games. I get the feeling we're going to see a loan at the end of this window for Stefan, based off the lack of pre-season minutes he had. Ryan said, why on earth would Slot replace Frimpong for Endo? Take Wirtz off. Van Dijk is far too complacent. I don't know, Ryan. I can understand Kerkez for Robbo. No issues with that. Both because Kerkez was on a yellow. And again, just experience as well. Straight swap. No problem with that. But Endo at right back, especially when there was no need for it. Like Frimpong wasn't flagging out there as well. It was, I don't get that decision. But at least Arne seen that mistake and corrected it with another change. And then we seen Gomez come on into that right back position. So at least he did correct it, but it is certainly a concern. We spoke about Arne Slot's changes before, and if the thought process there was to try and see out the game, well, it didn't work. So we need to learn from that moving forward as well. Insane changes from Slot. Players bailed him out. Well, yes and no. So yes, of course, we can be critical of those changes, but let's not just absolve that defence of any responsibility either. Because knowing that Endo was coming on, Endo 1 shouldn't be asked to go that high, and we need to be better at covering. And again, in transition, turning over possession, we leave space in behind, and teams are very quick to exploit that. It used to be that Trent was bombing forward. Now we've got Frimpong in. It still worries me. We need to be tighter. And the second goal, I know I keep banging on about it, but I just can't understand and comprehend two experienced international centre-backs just backing off for 45, 50 yards. It's ridiculous. I thought Wirtz looked really good tonight. I thought he was okay. You can see what he's about, and you can see that he will come good. I just feel like he's still getting used to the rhythm and the pace of the league, but he's too good for it not to work out. The real star boy for me tonight was Hugo Ekitike. I loved it. I loved everything about his performance. I loved him putting himself about. I loved his little touches. I loved him battling up front and challenging and tackling. I loved it. There was a lot to like about that from Hugo Ekitike. Mackie said, we can't always expect to win with ease. Winning tough games through grit and determination is what the Premier League's about. Thanks, Craig, for the watch-along. But respectfully, Mackie, that game should have been won with ease. So saying we can't always expect to do it, we put ourselves into a 2-0 lead. And both the Bournemouth goals came from us giving the ball away. So it was our own problem that we let them back into that game. Now, I get what you're saying. It's a competitive league and, teams don't give up. But, let's not absolve the lads of some criticisms because that defensive performance deserves them. Jack said, sometimes I feel like VVD protects his dribbled pass that a little bit too much. Canade showing why he isn't worth the contract he wants. And I agree on Canade. I've always said I don't see a 200 grand a week defender. I'm not going to throw him under the bus because I think they're both as bad as each other, to be honest with you. But it just feels like we're lacking aggression in our centre-backs, and it's annoying because look at the size of them. Again, watch the goal. He picks up the ball inside his own half, and he doesn't get challenged once before he scores. That is inexplicable. Sell Soboslai, use the Stamina Merchant. That's absolute bollocks. Sorry, that's absolute nonsense. If you want to start criticising players today, I don't think Soboslai is the one that I'd be, singling out for attention. There were good and bad things in his game, and I'm certainly not saying he was amazing out there today. But again, I'm talking about Salah giving away possession every time he got it, 3-4 times, crosses blocked, passes to the opposition, not our players. Wirtz in transition at times, getting caught in possession, maybe not being aware that there are people in and around him. Centre-backs, like I've spoken about. There's stuff to work on, but, we'll always be capable of scoring goals with the quality players we have. But we do need pressure on Mo. He just does need to know that there's somebody there. And again, tonight, and I might be misreading this situation, but I'm going to give you my take on it. So tonight again, the manager looks to the bench, and what we don't see is trust in young Rio Engamoa. And the reason I keep bringing this up is, remember, Diaz was let go, and Rio was going to be the guy. Well, in the Community Shield and in the first league game at home, the manager hasn't felt like the guy to step up is ready and hasn't brought him on. Whereas, let's be honest, if Diaz was on the bench today, does anybody think Diaz doesn't get on that pitch? He does. He absolutely does. And that's why I'm saying I don't want the situation again where the manager's turning around and looking at the bench and saying one thing to the media, but doing a very different thing when it comes time to making the changes. We either trust young Rio or we don't. He's either ready for the here and now or he isn't. We cannot half-arse it. This one from Lewis said, would you start Leone or Canade next game? Away against... I wouldn't be starting Leone in his first Premier League game away at St James's Park. Not a chance. So he's 16 stuff. No arguing that. But you sold Diaz and the pathway was not to be blocked because Rio was there. So what age he is irrelevant. The club made a decision to sell a winger because we have a young winger. If you don't play that young winger, then you've undermined your own decision to sell Diaz. It's as simple as that. We had it last season as well. The manager looked to the bench, didn't trust Chiesa, didn't trust Elliott, didn't want to bring them on. So we either trust Rio and he's a first teamer for the here and now, or we don't. We cannot half-arse it, particularly when we are already numerically short in attack. Where are we at? Daniel said, hope he stays and gets more games. Federico Chiesa. I was so happy for him. So happy. And as somebody else in the chat said, I forgot Yamal's 28. Look, you and I, as fans, didn't make the decision. You know, I'm more than happy for Rio to be there. Love the kid, looked brilliant. But what I'm saying is, if the manager in these moments doesn't feel that he can go to that guy, we've sort of undermined ourselves. Because if Diaz was on that bench, Diaz gets brought on. I think we'd all agree on that. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Adzer said, well, Craig, what's happened to Ibu? Now I understand why we're signing Mark Gay. It would look like his head's not Liverpool right now. So look, I don't know if his head's not at Liverpool. I don't know if it's something to do with transfers or his contract. I don't know. But I do know that Canade hasn't looked right in a while. Didn't look right in the Community Shield. Didn't look right today. And certainly, in my opinion, is not deserving of £200,000 a week. He just isn't. I'm not saying I want him sold or not, but I do want a decision, because if you do think it's in his head, well, it needs to be resolved. You know, because that performance from our centre-backs again isn't good enough. How many games in a row have we conceded 2 now? Community Shield, this game, AC Milan, it's just too easy. Cannot keep conceding 2 goals a game. Free Isak, said Jules. Cass said, I'm not being negative about our new signings. They have something to prove, but not ready yet. We're heart and soul for the team. That will come. Take them away, and the champions know how to win. Chiesa to stay. So, yeah, for all the criticism, Cass, that we've had tonight, one thing needs to be remembered as well. They found a way to win, right? Which is important, because they didn't shrink. They didn't go and hide. They found a way to win that game. And that's important that we point that out as well, because that is what champions are made of. You know, that could have easily ended up 2-2, or heaven forbid we overcommit and lose it. But we found a way to win it. So they do absolutely deserve credit for that as well, because it takes courage to go and do that. Mac said, Verge had to worry about the other man. Canade looked lost. So happy for Chiesa. So I'm not sure which moment in particular we're discussing. Either or could have stepped up and made the challenge for me. And the first one was a bit different, because I remember Canade was coming across the cover. Verge he had a man, if I remember correctly. I think it was number 15. And then Robbo was chasing back Semenyo. So maybe Robbo could have given Verge a shout to say, ignore your man, Semenyo's the one we need to worry about. But by the time it all figured out, it was too late. The cross came in and Semenyo scored. Arthur said he took a shot to the jewels. That definitely rattled him. Well, that was second half, if I remember correctly, mate. But look, isn't it better to be talking about these things after a win? You know, we can all have our opinions and we can go back and forth, and, you know, it's the first game of the season and we got to win. So ultimately, when all is said and done, 3 points are on the board, we move forward. But it was just a bit more manic than it probably needed to be. Nessie said, these refs would ruin games yet again. Nothing has changed. All they do is yap on television and move with no accountability. When will this change? Never will they keep getting away with it, Nessie. And while the pundits and the media and everybody else continues to blow smoke up referees' arse and tell us all about the tough job they have, we're all going to keep being undermined by them. Because for the Premier League to put out that statement and say that was not a handball is nothing short of disgusting. They're spitting in the face of football fans by telling us that what we see very clearly with our own 2 eyes isn't what's happening. You're right, no accountability, and there never seems that there will be. We'll get Howard Webb on that stupid programme with Michael Owen telling us why this was the right decision or that they'll learn from it. Bullshit. It was a disgrace. And it's no accident that Oliver's at the scene of it every time a handball isn't given. Odegaard, no handball. Are you serious? That one, no handball. Just shocking. Shocking. How wrong you were today, Craig. 4-0 in Chiesa. Well, firstly, I never predicted 4-0, so you're wrong on that one. And no Chiesa. I don't know what you're talking about with that. But I said 3-1 in my prediction. So technically I got the win amount right, 4-2, 3-1. Jones knows on Sky, though, predicted it absolutely spot on. He went 4-2. Jules Verne said, God bless Jota's family. Now free Isak. Yes, very important, Jules, to remember Diogo and tonight as well. His wife and his family were there. So yes, absolutely lovely sentiment, mate. Thank you. Wirtz struggled first half, better second half, said Jack. Defensively horrendous since February, over 5 months, said Scratching Claimers. So let's put it into the chat. You know, what do you guys think defensively? What would you like to see change maybe over the coming days and weeks? Now, look, I guess we speak about all of this, but we need to speak about it in the context of last week and this week, we didn't have Gravenberch anchor in the base of that midfield. So, you know, as much as Maka put in a good shift there and, you know, certainly wasn't lacking in effort, it wasn't Gravenberch. And I think we will see that extra confidence and that shield in there when he returns next week. Josh said, do you think Frimpong should have been taken off? No, not at all, mate. The Kirkes one I totally understand. Like for like swap at Robbo, Kirkes on the yellow. I can totally understand that one. Don't see the sense of the Frimpong change. And bringing Endo on, I thought, in that position, it just asked for trouble because he hasn't got the pace to deal with the wingers. But to be fair to Arna, he did realise that after we conceded one and made the change. But, you know, it'd be nicer if that was done in the first place. Right, what have we got? Slot said Frimpong felt his hamstring. Fair enough. Okay, so if there was a physical reason that he had to make the change, okay. Honestly, would have rathered Jones or Gomez slip into the right back spot, but at least now we can understand if Frimpong felt something, fair enough. At least that acknowledges why the change was made. Alan O'Brien said, do the centre-backs not talk? Surely one says go to him. Schoolboys wouldn't let that happen. You're right, they wouldn't. And the goalkeeper would be screaming as well. Somebody has to step up and make the decision. Somebody has to do it, mate. You're right. And I don't know what was said or wasn't said between the two of them. But like you said, Alan, schoolboy football, your centre-back would have stepped up there and made a challenge. Carl said, can we not be so critical at the moment of our players and get behind the team? No. Stop this fucking nonsense of happy clappy, everybody kumbaya bullshit. No, absolutely not. Not a chance. You know, we're all entitled to have our say and our criticisms. We've spent £300 million. We have brought in a British record transfer player. We have sold a load of players. We are absolutely entitled to have our opinion and be critical because we have to hold people to account, mate. We have to. And there's a difference between being critical and hating. We've won, we've talked about that, and we've said, yay, great, we move on. But we're absolutely entitled to ask what the fuck is going on, particularly defensively. So, love you, dude, but everybody's entitled to have an opinion. And we can't all just sing kumbaya, sit around and clap hands. You know, we need to call it as we see it. No handball, slapping the ball away, made my head hurt. I know, doesn't make sense. David said, what is handball anymore? It's a joke. I don't know, mate. I don't know. I've no idea. You want your fans to be happy clappy though. Do I? When have I said that, dickhead? So again, you arseholes in the chat that just think you're clever. When has anybody said to the audience, be happy clappy? Doesn't happen. I want people to say what they see. I want people to talk about games with honesty. Talk about the good stuff, celebrate the good stuff, but you don't absolve the mistakes. The mistakes need to be worked on. And holding people to account when we've spent a ridiculous sum of money to improve the squad, I think is very fair. You know, if you think that was a great performance and there's nothing to worry about, then you crack on and enjoy yourself. But I'll be here in reality talking about what I actually seen, with honesty and integrity, and not, hey, cake and pie, cake and pie. That's not me. That's never going to be me. I call it as I see it. Good, bad, and indifferent. I call it as I see it. Chulu said, thank goodness Gravenberch will be back. Defo. He will make a big difference in there. There's no doubt about that. Right, so where are we at? Sorry, Didinho said, Canade was good for most of the game, in my opinion. Most? Well, I'll just give you a snapshot of my side of this. 15, 20 minutes into the game, Didinho, and my WhatsApp had 8 messages about Canade. 15, 20 minutes into the game, all about Canade from all different football fans. So, yeah, look, we all do see the games differently, and that's, I guess, part of the fun of being a fan, right? I might think somebody played well, you might think somebody played poorly, and ultimately, the fun is debating it and going back and forth on it. Either way, we conceded 2 again, and I think we do need to ask why, because it's the 3rd or 4th in a row that we've done that. Ryan said, I think Slot almost made a big mistake tonight, taking both fullbacks off together and putting Endo on. It gave Bournemouth wind in their sails. So, to be fair, somebody filled me in on this a moment ago. Apparently, there was a hamstring concern or something for Frimpong, so at least that lets us know why that change was made, which I guess does give it some context. Gabriel said, hi Craig, big fan, F off Juve, I'm a cop right now. Yes, he is. I'm so happy for him, mate. So happy for him that he got that goal. It was a nice little finish as well. Kind of sliced it across his body, but good finish, and yeah, lovely moment for him. I don't think Szoboszlai did as bad as some have made out. He really great moments, then moments of being too loose, 7.5 out of 10. So I'll fill you in on a little secret. Some, and not all of, but some of those people who were critical of Dom were already critical of him, and they were always going to be. And you'll notice it as the season goes on. There are some people who form an opinion about a player and never, ever are willing to question that. It just is. There's always scapegoats. And some people just have the scapegoats written out before the game happens, and then they look for confirmation bias, and they look to find ways to belittle the same player. I thought, like you, Dom was okay today. Some good, some bad. Same as a lot of the other players out there. And again, a lot of what people are saying about rhythm and match time and togetherness, it will change. We will get better. Absolutely agree with that as well. But it just feels like we haven't had enough game time together. And I guess you come back to pre-season and then ask, could we have done a bit more in pre-season together with a stronger 11? Because most of these guys, bar Ekitike, were brought in early doors. So the manager had a pretty full summer to work with the lads that came in. So I do expect us to be a bit further along. And we have the good thing between now and Newcastle is there is 9-10 days for Arnott to really, really focus in on Newcastle, prepare the lads mentally for what they're going to walk into, because St. James's Park is going to be lively and they need to be prepared. Tonight was a home game with a friendly crowd and, of course, an emotional evening for Diogo. But St. James's Park is going to be a different kettle of fish for that second game on a Monday night. Boost, having Gravenberch back, said Winter. Give Leone a chance. I can't wait to see him. Very intrigued to see how young Giovanni Leone gets on. And just in case anybody missed it, we'll be wearing the number 15 shirt. Star Girl said, love Chiesa's determination. Hope he stays. Right, I have a couple more chats I want to get through. I'm going to start winding down the match reaction then. So please don't send any more super chats because I don't want to miss them and I don't want you to waste your money. We will be winding it down in about 5-10 minutes. And if you'd like to submit your player ratings, by the way, you can do so in the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp. If you haven't joined it, scan that QR code on the screen there now, and that will take you in. You'll see the link in there to submit your ratings. Right, let's keep going. Where was I? This one from Tom said, agree with everything you said, mate. I don't think we need to look into tonight too much. We're missing Ryan in the 6 and Connor Bradley as a backup right back, who's a great defensively. Agree about Rio. Yeah, I think Ryan makes a big difference in that midfield. I really do. Jason said, watching with my 10-year-old Noah. You spoke to him in front rows in Liverpool. Watched the game together and now watching AA together. That's awesome. Noah, how are you, young man? It was a pleasure to meet you in Liverpool, mate. And thank you, Jason, for dropping in tonight as well. And yeah, young Noah, legend, mate. Love you watching with your dad as well. Dave said, I think we're seeing how important Ryan is for us. Yep. And also, I guess you could make the argument as well about... you could make the argument again. I love that people, all you little trolls in the chat that are coming in to try and have a pop at me, keep coming. Because all you're doing is just more money in my pocket. So call me a whinging baby, call me whatever you want. The most important thing you realise is I've won, you're watching. Sit on that L, bitch. Sit on that L. You're watching me, remember? You can slag me off all you want. The algorithm's still working in my favour. So you crack on. I'll still be here winning. Yeah, I agree. And what I'd like to add on top of that, Dave, is it also brings up the point of the cover for Ryan, right? You know, if Ryan picked up an injury and was out for a while, tonight kind of showed that we are still lacking in somebody who can come in and do, I guess, a similar way of playing. Although I thought that Alexis put a good shift in. Slot was lucky. The guy just doesn't trust... Slot was lucky. The guy he doesn't trust came on and saved the game. Huge moment, yeah, for Federico. And I absolutely agree. We made wrong decisions today. And the manager certainly... Yeah, look, I agree. We got lucky. Slot got lucky. But I also don't want to absolve the lads of the courage to go and win it. You know, yes, we made mistakes and we got into it, but it, again, took a lot of bottle to make sure they went and won that. And they did. They turned it back around and went up the other end and won the game. So I'd much rather be having these conversations after a win, like we've said. Lewis said, if we don't sign Isak this window, who would you sign in case Ekitike was to get injured? We're running out of options, Lewis, in all honesty. You know, Rodrigo could go to Man City. Barcola, I never liked the idea of. So... slim pickings. And, you know, if you're talking about selling Ben Doak, which we look like we're doing today as well, we best hope that whatever the plan is, we're able to execute it because, yeah, we are looking a bit light in that regard. Suleiman said our squad is too thin to play in 4 competitions. With this performance, we lose to Newcastle and Arsenal. I agree, but I hope we see a better performance then against those sides. We've plenty of time to prepare for it as well. You know, 9-10 days now between now and the Newcastle game. We also get to sit back now and enjoy the opening weekend of the Premier League, knowing that we got the job done. Chris said, good start season with a win. I think we missed Gravenberch tonight. Midfield was too unbalanced. How strong is Semenyo? Very. He's a good player. Gomez may be better. Shout to start at Newcastle. Thank you for that. LFC Mania said must improve. He was awful. Kirkes terrible again. Yeah, Kirkes wasn't great. He was almost like overly enthusiastic or something. I do get where you're coming from. Semenyo or Elise as Salah's replacement long term. I'd love the idea of Elise next year. When I read that today, it really did make me happy. Craig, you said Chiesa wasn't even playing on the bench. Well, why would I have said that when I literally read out the team beforehand with Chiesa on the bench? So, again, why don't you just go and fuck off, Dylan? Would that not be easier? Like, rather than you trying to just come in to moan at me, just fuck off and watch somebody else, because I'm fed up of listening to you, in all honesty, mate. Super chats or not, I don't really care. And I read out his name on the bench 7 or 8 times before the game started, so I don't know where the fuck you're coming from. Scratching Claimer said, Rio sits until contract is signed. If he plays well, his agent will have too much negotiating power. Semenyo, 50 million is a steal. Verts, I don't know what, or Ekitike, Salah, my front 3. Sorry, a lot to unpack there. Where are we? What age is Semenyo, actually? That's something else I'd like to figure out. But he's a good player. And tonight there again, he showed he's quality. Bullseye Gamer, thank you. Gakpo, brilliant tonight. Very underrated. I think he had to stay on. Reason why didn't come on, maybe. So a couple of people have sent in super chats. I don't know if I'll get to them, and I did ask people not to send them in because I don't want to waste your money. But bear with me. I'm going to try to fly through all of these as quickly as I can. Again, thank you to everyone, but please don't post anymore. To be fair, I meant no criticism for no reason, but you didn't say that. Owen said, I'd like to see Bradley in the first 11 consistently for any defensive competence. We need one more attacker and one more defender. Dream is Isak and Gay. So there was a really interesting comment, Owen, from Dave O.C. Cop that said Liverpool are looking to bring in a 60, 70 million pound winger as well as Isak, which, if true, is pretty exciting. Arthur said contract situation must be distracting for Ibu. Then it needs to come to a conclusion, right? Either we find a way to give him a new deal or we move on. I saw him make many clearances as well as errors. I don't know who that was about. Didinho, you think Ibu was it? I think it was Ibu you were talking about, Didinho, if I remember correctly. We look dangerous, but also need to work defensively. Abu said, thoughts on Joey G in centre-back this season if fit? Oh, look, Joe's a great defender. Always happy to see Joe on the pitch in any way. I think I prefer him at right-back than at centre-back, if I'm being honest with you, but a really good lad to have around when he's fit and a very, very good option for the manager. I did say unless it was structured criticism, but you didn't read all of my comments. Just really hate criticism of our players. But you contradicted your own comment. But either way, Carl, I don't know what to say to you, mate. Everybody has an opinion, and I don't know what else to say. I'm never going to think everything's great and just say everything's great, because that wasn't the performance where everything was great. And the manager deserves some criticism for the changes. The defence deserves some criticism for continuously conceding two and avoidable goals. You know, that's just a fact as far as I'm concerned. You can hear them crying in Turin, said Joseph. Honestly, dude, I'm so happy for Chiesa tonight. So happy. Kem said we need another experienced top winger. Salah was horrible for most of the game. Both our centre-backs need real competition. Robbo is now washed. Endo doesn't fit our system. Frimpong and Hugo are class. A lot to unpack there, Kem. Agree on the pressure on Salah. We definitely could do with another option that the manager can turn to if, for whatever reason, a player isn't having a good game. And I think overall, yeah, I agree. Salah hadn't got a great performance tonight. Did come good with his goal, but there were things that I think he could have and should have done better. Again, difficult to know how much of the emotional toll was still there from the Diogo situation. Cass said, mate, got to say, Mo needed that at the end of the game. I think that finally broke him to proper come to terms with the loss. It really made me upset. It was tough to see. And I always felt like he was carrying a lot of pain, a lot of emotional baggage. And it must have been really difficult for them as well, Kaz, because every game we've played in pre-season, obviously every set of fans in every country want to respect and show their love and admiration for Diogo and Andre. But it must be a really heavy emotional, I don't want to say burden because that's not fair, but emotional weight to carry for these guys every time they go out onto the pitch to play the game recently. You know, they've been reminded of the loss of their friend, their teammate and their brother. It must be incredibly difficult for them all to have dealt with. And, you know, tonight was the first one back at Anfield in a competitive game. His family there and they got the win, which is the most important thing. Endo at right back is not something I want to see again, said Velvet Thunder. Right, ladies and gents, I want to just end with the Man of the Match poll. We are nearly at 10,000 votes. Your Anfield Agenda Man of the Match tonight is Hugo Ekitike. And thank you so much to everyone that took part in that vote as well. Again, thank you to our sponsors, FotMob. I'm off to record the player ratings video now. If you haven't signed up yet, remember, it's in the WhatsApp group if you want to come across. And yeah, thank you so much for your for your love, for your fun, for your viewing tonight. We got the job done, basically. It wasn't pretty, but we got the win, and we get to sit back and enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll talk to you soon.